Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight, we invite you to descend into darkness with a chilling anthology of horror stories. This is episode 42. Let the nightmare begin. The Resurrected One. When is Miracle Girl coming? I asked and got a stony look of disapproval from my uncle in return. If he read comic books, he'd appreciate my nickname for an immortal elementary schooler. Grandpa laid his good gray eye on me. The filmy, unseeing one wandered off like the old man's mind often did. Miracle, my, ABA. Uncle Aaron snapped, the confines of our apartment's small kitchen lending an extra edge to his voice. I bit my lip to keep from laughing. Did Uncle Aaron really think a 7th grader wouldn't know what Grandpa was going to say? I folded my arms atop the headrest of Grandpa's wheelchair and leaned forward with the wheels safely locked in place. "Don't take that tone with me, soldier," Grandpa Eli wheezed, which led to a fit of coughing. I sprung up, rushed a cup of water to him, and took away the yogurt. Grandpa raised the cup to his cracked lips. It shook, spilling some water onto the rusty metal box he'd been using for a tray. Uncle Aaron let out a long sigh. "I'm not a soldier, Dad. I'm a rabbi. My father was the soldier, but he died when I was a baby. If you want to go to rabbinical school instead of the Marines, I guess you have my blessing," Grandpa said, his voice trailing off. A giggle escaped my lips. I took away the empty cup and gave Grandpa his yogurt back. "I'm glad you find your grandfather's Alzheimer's funny, Nathan," Uncle Aaron muttered. Guilt melted the smile from my face. "My mind's as clear as ever," Grandpa protested, finishing the last spoonful and wiping his mouth with his bathrobe sleeve. Now he smelled of blueberry Dannon and Old Man. "So when is she coming?" I asked again, not that I particularly cared. Uncle Aaron checked his watch. "In about 15 minutes. And her name is Lily Cohen." "That was her name," Grandpa said as if it had been changed. He raised the yogurt container upside down with a spoon and shook it like a rattle. "Corporal Weiss was my miracle. The Germans took him from us when they put a bullet in his gut. Then we thought God," he spat out the word like phlegm caught in his throat, "had given him back. That was 75 years ago, Dad." The effort to keep his voice calm reddened my uncle's bearded face. "Your memory isn't. What's that in your lap?" I gave that box to Grandpa. I gestured to the worn metal container, shaped like a shoebox, but flatter and not quite as long. Only flecks remained of the olive green paint that once coated it. A pair of rusty latches held it closed. He asked me to get it for him from the attic. "It's old metals and stuff." At least that's what Grandpa told me. I'd never seen the box before, having to dig it out from under a big pile of junk. It was too heavy to be holding a bunch of metals. One big thing slid around inside. I was curious, but didn't want to be nosy. If Grandpa wanted me to see what was in there, he'd show me soon enough. Grandpa tapped the box with a quivering, gnarled finger. "These are Weiss personal effects." He had no next of kin, so I took him. Grandpa sounded sad, like this man Weiss had just died yesterday and not a lifetime ago. Uncle Aaron's face scrunched. "Why would you want to look at those things now?" "Grandpa's good," I stared past my uncle, fixed on something I couldn't see. "Our rifles had been fired, of course." Weiss smelled the gunpowder and thought we were his killers. Uncle Aaron rolled his eyes. "No ghost stories, Dad, please." "Not now. No, not a ghost. Not Weiss. The vengeful spirit inside him. God knows why dybbuks choose who they choose, but they only possess our people. You're training to be a rabbi. You ought to know about them." "Dad, I finished my rabbinical training 30 years ago. Dybbuks weren't in the curriculum." "What's a dybbuk?" I asked. Grandpa never mentioned them in any of his musty stories of deadly German snipers and unstoppable tiger tanks. Uncle Aaron waved his hand as if to brush away the subject. "A bogeyman from Jewish folklore and a figment of your grandfather's imagination." Grandpa didn't hear Uncle Aaron or pretended not to. Weiss ripped out the medic's throat with his teeth. "Nathan doesn't need to hear this, Dad," Uncle Aaron said, hands on his hips and shaking his head in disapproval. "A Jewish zombie, cool. Complete Alzheimer's fueled crap, but cool." Uncle Aaron never told me to shut up, in words anyway. His glare did that. Nathan, take Grandpa to his room and put on the game for him. Grandpa's eyes narrowed. No, I want to see the girl. Uncle Aaron rubbed his temples with his thumb and forefinger. Dad, her family just suffered a major trauma. You probably don't remember the shooting that was on the news. I remember the mall shooting, Grandpa said with surprising certainty. Well, the Cohens were trapped inside the mall when it happened. Lily took a bullet to the chest. I know. I heard you talking on the phone this morning. I'm not deaf yet, you know. The girl was declared dead, but now she's up and about. Grandpa pointed an accusing finger at Uncle Aaron. You really believe the doctors pulled off a miracle? Yeah, Dad, I do. Uncle Aaron briefly removed his black yarmulke to scratch his head. But healing the body is one thing. The mind is something else. Lily hasn't spoken a word since she regained consciousness. She was released from the hospital Tuesday. The Cohens are coming for a counseling session to see if I can break Lily out of her shell. You know better than anyone that overcoming trauma isn't that. Grandpa interrupted. The medic declared Weiss dead the first time. Uncle Aaron's face reddened. I knew he wanted to yell, but a forced calm emerged. Dad, just don't. Don't compare your friend with this little girl. Weiss obviously wasn't dead. The medic was tired. You were all impossibly tired. Weiss was unconscious and woke up shell-shocked, not possessed by dybbuk. You should have seen his eyes, Grandpa whispered, more to himself than to my uncle or me. They were wrong. Nathan, take your grandfather. It's Weiss. He's still coming. Grandpa shrieked. He sent the yogurt container flying when he pointed with his spoon at an ordinary cabinet filled with plates and dishes. His eyes bulged like they'd popped from their sockets, and the color drained from his face. Terror contorted his expression into that of a vampire who'd seen the sunrise. Keep firing at him. My heart pounded hard enough to hurt my chest. Gee, Grandpa, teach there's nothing there. A little boy's voice inside my head screamed for me to hightail it from the kitchen. I was 6 and ran away the first time I witnessed one of Grandpa's flashbacks. 13 now, I stood my ground like a good soldier. Uncle Aaron crouched in front of the wheelchair and met Grandpa's gaze. Dad, no one's coming. You're home. You're safe. The pink crept back into Grandpa's flesh. Aaron, he panted. Yes, Dad. It's me. Is Weiss down? Uncle Aaron nodded. Yes, he's down. Grandpa's shoulders slumped. A strange mix of sorrow and relief softened his wrinkled features. He's been gone a long time. You were remembering the war. Let Nathan help you into bed so you can get some rest. Uncle Aaron moved out of the way and gave me a nod. I took a deep breath and released it slowly before unlocking the wheels of Grandpa's chair and pushing him towards the living room. With speed and strength I never imagined Grandpa possessed, he jammed his yogurt spoon into the wheelchair's gears where it stuck. I'm staying. I kneeled beside the chair and struggled to pull the spoon out, but the handle kept sliding from my grip. How did a man, not much more than skin and bones, get it in so good? Hoping the wheel spokes would force the spoon out or break it, I tried to push Grandpa forward, but the chair wouldn't budge. The wheels stuck Uncle Aaron. Damn it, Dad. Uncle Aaron stooped down and tried to get the spoon loose. Frustration wrinkled his brow as his efforts amounted to nothing. Grandpa couldn't walk by himself. Even if we could convince him going to bed was a good idea. Uncle Aaron, with his bad back and scrawny, me couldn't carry him. Uncle Aaron groaned, grasping his lower back as he slowly rose to his feet. Nathan, give me the toolbox from the closet. The doorbell rang. Uncle Aaron glanced at his watch, then shrugged in resignation. It would be early. Forget the toolbox. He looked to Grandpa. Dad, can you at least stay quiet and not scare Lily with your crazy stories? Can we agree the child's been through enough? I bet my uncle wished there was a door between the kitchen and the living room, but there was no shutting Grandpa in. Grandpa nodded slowly, his thin lips pursed. Stay here with him, Uncle Aaron said to me. Keep him calm. I'm going to take the Cohens into my study. Okay, like I had control over Grandpa's flashbacks. I took a seat at the table, pulled out my phone, and started playing a first-person shooter. Uncle Aaron frowned. "Put that away and talk to your grandfather." I looked up at Grandpa. He seemed miles from here, fighting the last battles of World War II in his head. There was no talking to him now. The doorbell rang again. Uncle Aaron walked into the living room, adjusting his yarmulke so it neatly covered his bald spot before answering the front door and beckoning the family in. "Shalom, Mr. and Mrs. Cohen." He looked down at Lily, who I couldn't see behind her parents, a weary-eyed couple dressed conservatively. Mrs. Cohen wore a head covering and long skirt, though it was June, and Mr. Cohen was in a black suit with a plain yarmulke atop his head. Uncle Aaron bent over and offered Lily his hand, which she didn't take. "And shalom to you, Lily," he said, undaunted. "I hear you are a very brave girl." "Nathan," Grandpa whispered, "turn me so I can see them." "I'll try, Grandpa, but it'd be easier if you hadn't messed up the chair." He snickered softly. I put down my phone, stood, and grabbed the chair's handles. Scraping the wheels on the floor, I managed to swivel him so he faced the family. They didn't take notice of us or pretended not to. Lily hid behind her mom and dad as Uncle Aaron spoke. Her parents' smiles were perfectly wide, as if painted on. A sudden chill caused my skin to break out in goosebumps, and I wrapped my arms around my chest. "Please follow me." Uncle Aaron led the trio towards his study. Before they disappeared down the hall, I glimpsed Miracle Girl. I'd never pick her out from a crowd of 10-year-olds as the one who got shot, died, and was brought back to life, but any scars and bandages were hidden behind her red dress. Grandpa fiddled with the latches on his box. They clicked, and the lid opened a crack. I felt eyes on me and found Lily alone at the living room entrance. She faced us like an expressionless mannequin or someone asleep with eyes wide open. Dead, dark eyes that turned my blood to ice. It was as if her gaze met mine by weird accident, a blindfolded kid pinning the tail on the donkey the first try. I managed a timid wave. "Hi, Lily." No answer. No sign she'd heard me. Mrs. Cohen came to stand beside her daughter. Mr. Cohen and Uncle Aaron were a step behind. "Lily, what is it, honey?" Mrs. Cohen cooed, studying Grandpa and me to see what her daughter found so interesting. Lily lifted her head and sniffed the air like a dog. Uncle Aaron's brow furrowed at Lily's behavior, but he calmly introduced us. "That's my nephew, Nathan, and my dad is Grandpa Eli." The hinges squeaked as Grandpa pulled back the lid. "You smell it, don't you, girl? The gunpowder." He lifted from the box a large, old-fashioned gun with a long barrel and angular grip. My jaw dropped. "Dad, is that thing loaded?" Uncle Aaron's words rode a tsunami of disbelief. "Put away now." Lily walked towards Grandpa, drawing air through her nose between each slow, deliberate step. Grandpa leveled the gun at the little girl, 2 fingers on the trigger. The empty box slid off his lap and clattered on the floor. "It's not the weapon that killed her, but she don't know that. Dybbuks ain't that discerning." "Lily." Mr. Cohen took her sleeve and yanked her backwards, putting his body between his daughter and the line of fire. In a blur of movement, Lily had a 2-handed hold of his arm, which she twisted until it made a sickening crack. Mr. Cohen was still crying out in pain when she effortlessly tossed him across the room, a toy discarded by a tantruming toddler. The wall shook when he hit it, and the back of his head painted a red streak as he slid to the carpet in a lifeless heap. Mrs. Cohen's scream drowned out my own. With eyes a manga artist couldn't draw any wider, Uncle Aaron stood still as a statue, mouth agape. I also didn't move. None of this could possibly be real, though it was the wrong time of year for a sick Halloween hoax. Mrs. Cohen ran to her husband and knelt before him, not noticing Lily stalking her. Lily jumped onto her back and swung her arms around Mrs. Cohen's neck. Her teeth sank into her mother's throat. Blood gushed from the woman's neck in a scarlet geyser. "Nathan, get behind me!" Grandpa barked. I listened without thinking and cowered behind the wheelchair. 2 bangs shattered my eardrums. Then I heard nothing but a low hum. God had clicked mute on the world. A window flew outward in a fountain of silently breaking glass. Lily opened her bloody mouth, releasing Mrs. Cohen. The entangled bodies of mother and child fell over, but only Lily moved, a ravenous leopard rising on all fours. The other bullet had torn a hole in Lily's shoulder, but it didn't stop her from pouncing on Grandpa. The gun dropped to the kitchen floor. I backed away until up against the countertop. Deafness spared me Grandpa's cries as Lily bit into his throat. Sounds I didn't dare imagine. Uncle Aaron came to his senses, grabbed the small girl's arms, and tried to pull her off Grandpa. The drone in my ears subsided in time for me to hear my uncle grunting with the effort, but she wouldn't surrender her prey. He changed tactics, swinging a fist at her head and smashing her ear. Lily paid him no mind. Sirens. Someone reported the gunshots. The faint sound grew steadily louder, but the cops wouldn't get here soon enough. Forcing my eyes from the carnage, my gaze fell on the gun at Grandpa's feet. I dove to the floor and crawled on my belly until close enough to reach under the wheelchair, grab the gun's grip, and slide the weapon towards me. I sprung to my feet behind Grandpa's chair, the heavy weapon in both hands. 3 of my skinny fingers fit around the trigger. I tried to center the notch at the end of the barrel on Lily, but my trembling made it near impossible. Maybe I'd hit her, maybe Grandpa or Uncle Aaron, who was still swinging away at her head. I couldn't. My frightened fingers made the choice for me. The automatic weapon fired 4 rounds with an accidental squeeze of the trigger. At such close range, the bullets pierced the wheelchair's fabric back and Grandpa's frail frame. Lily slumped onto Grandpa's lap, then rolled onto the floor face down, blood pooling beneath her. Her body twitched a few times before it stilled. In the same moment, Uncle Aaron keeled over, bleeding torrentially from his abdomen. I dropped the gun and fell to my knees, my body racked with sobs. Sensing movement, I lifted my eyes and wiped the wet from them. Grandpa had risen from his wheelchair. He walked towards me, expressionless. Blood poured from his neck and the holes in his chest. Did Lily kill him, or was it the gunshots? He sniffed the air, and then as good, I worked its way up from the weapon at my knees to meet my horrified stare. It didn't matter, I realized. Dybbuks weren't that discerning. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Grandpa, no, not Grandpa. Whatever stood in front of me had Grandpa's body, but not his soul. His eye, the one that worked, was dead behind it. Gone was the sparkle of cranky wisdom and worn-down affection. In its place, nothing. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't find my voice. The body took another step toward me. The wound in the throat gurgled as air whistled in and out. The holes in his chest dribbled blood like a leaky sink. I scooted backward on my palms, my heels sliding uselessly on the kitchen floor. The thing that was once Grandpa, Eli, tilted its head. Nathan, it said in his voice, but not his tone. The word was dry and flat, like someone reading a name off a list. I whimpered. Behind me, the sound of approaching sirens wailed louder. Red and blue lights flared outside the shattered window. A crash, then boots, voices, guns raised, shouting. Drop it! Hands up! Clear left! They burst into the room. 3 officers in tactical gear, weapons trained on Grandpa's back. He turned slowly. The movement was unnatural, joints too stiff, as though he were a puppet testing strings. NYPD, one officer barked. Get on the ground. Now. Grandpa didn't move. He didn't speak, just looked at them, and then smiled. The smile tore at me worse than anything else. It wasn't a human smile. It was joyless, mocking, wrong. His arms rose slowly, not in surrender, but like something ancient was awakening in them. The officer closest to him fired. One shot, straight to the head. Grandpa's body jerked, dropped. Blood spread beneath him. I couldn't tell if the scream in the room was mine or someone else's. Hands grabbed me, lifted me, pulled me toward the front door. A female officer knelt beside me, speaking, but the words were underwater in my ears. I was bundled in a blanket, dragged outside, sat down on the steps in front of the building. Neighbors stood nearby, gawking, some recording with their phones. Flashes of red and blue spun across their faces. More cops, more shouting. A stretcher wheeled past with Uncle Aaron on it, barely conscious, blood-soaked. He turned his head, saw me mouth something. I couldn't hear it. Then the EMTs closed the doors, and the ambulance screamed away. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Paramedics checked my hearing, my vitals. A detective asked me questions I couldn't answer. My hands trembled too much to sign the waiver they shoved at me. Eventually, my mom showed up. Cried. Hugged me. Cried more. I didn't cry back. Couldn't. I wasn't there anymore. I was in that kitchen, watching Lily tear open her mother's throat. Watching Grandpa open that box. Watching something crawl out from the past and find a new body. Watching it look at me and smile. The next few days blurred. News vans camped outside our apartment. Reporters speculated about trauma, mental illness, wartime flashbacks. Police statements said the shooting was under investigation. No one mentioned dybbuks. No one mentioned Lily rising from the dead. They said Grandpa Eli had a breakdown, that he hallucinated, that he snapped and shot a girl, that I accidentally shot him and Uncle Aaron in the confusion. But I knew. We both knew. And Uncle Aaron, when he finally woke up from surgery, he asked me one thing. Did you smell it? I nodded. He closed his eyes and didn't speak again for a long time. The metal box was taken in as evidence. I never saw it again. They buried Grandpa next to my dad. But it wasn't Grandpa in that coffin. I don't know where he went, but he wasn't there anymore when the body fell. He'd already been pushed out, replaced. And Lily? No funeral. The Cohens were Orthodox. Their entire family was buried without autopsy, quickly, in accordance with Jewish tradition. No one ever came forward to claim her as anything other than a poor, traumatized child. The papers called her a miracle. They said she survived the mall shooting through medical misdiagnosis. They called it a case of suspended vital signs, misread flatline, a rare condition. But we knew better, and I still dream about her eyes. Sometimes I hear the click of that box's latches. Sometimes I smell the powder. Sometimes I wonder, what if there's more? What if Weiss wasn't the only one? What if Grandpa wasn't the last? What if dybbuks don't need war anymore? What if trauma's enough? If death is just the door, and we keep leaving it unlocked? I still have nightmares, but I never see Lily anymore. I only see Grandpa, walking through fire and smoke, sniffing the air, smiling. The cry of the Fifth Trumpet. You have been given a chance, one single opportunity, just for you, little one. You don't have to endure the tribulations about to be unleashed. You can escape all of that misery. All you have to do is listen to my voice. As before, it begins the same. A faint hum vibrates from the sky that tickles the back of your throat. The resonance builds to a thunderous, resounding blast of one of the 7 celestial trumpets. Each time that horrible sound is heard, it has heralded the start of another 3 years of suffering, each more horrifying than the next. For times has the trumpet sung its song. Before the echo of the 5th trumpet fades, you will be given your chance to escape. When that familiar tickle reemerges, an object will appear in the sky. As it nears, the intensity of the deep tone grows. You know it is only a matter of time before the deafening blast is heard once more. However, this time, what is to come will be different. The past 4 soundings of a trumpet brought with it disasters never seen in such magnitude. Yet you understood what they were. Yes, they were terrifying, but it was all within the realm of your understanding. You know what makes the earth roll and quake. You know why fiery mountains fall from the heavens. Knowledge has freed you from the archaic belief in the supernatural. No longer does such nonsense deceive you into believing the displeasure of a god will call the hurricane, or a curse will summon the cyclone, or a hex will bring down the plague upon you. It is something different that approaches from above. It is an abomination. It is wormwood. The Hebrews called him Abaddon, the banished, and the Greek knew him as Apollyon, the destroyer. Life as you knew it is now over, for he holds the keys to the bottomless pit that has imprisoned his army since even before the words, "Let there be light," were spoken. Do you remember the first time we spoke, little one? After the second trumpet sounded, you were given a vision of the pools of Nakona Sachida. If you were able to find the location of those sacred waters, go there now. 3 pools sit at the ends of a T-shaped rock formation. As the moon peeks out from the horizon, its crimson light gives the waters the appearance of blood. The higher it rises in the sky, long shadows are cast. Upon the rock, the likeness and resemblance of a man outstretched upon the rocks will appear before you. Stand in the center of the 3 pools. Tread carefully, for you stand before the image of the sacrament laid upon his symbol. Each pool has a name: the pierced left hand, the pierced right hand, and the pierced foot. Prepare yourself to receive the blessing of the pierced abdomen. It requires you to be anointed with the ethereal spearhead that will now run you through. There is no outward wound, but blood is now seeping internally into the empty places within you. Your body has now become the 4th pool of sacrifice. When you collapse from the pain, ensure that you fall into one of the pools of water. If you fall on a dry earth, you will have missed your only chance to enter the portal, and you will lose the anointment. As punishment, your wounds will be healed, but you will live the remainder of your days marked as was Cain, hunted by both angel and demon. If successful, you will awaken in a dark, candlelit stone building, lined with pews ending at a great altar. You stand upon the place of worship where the crossroads meet. Behind you are 3 mirrors, very similar in orientation to the pools of water you recently stood before. Shake off the chill from your wet body and make haste, little one. Time moves differently here, and we must move quickly. Look to the altar. Do you see it? There in the shadows, a figure is kneeling in the distance. Slowly and cautiously approach it. The creature is tall and hooded. It should be deep in prayer, whispering strange incantations. If it is not, do not come any closer. Only approach if it is in prayer. Do not interrupt. Any disruption will be considered a great offense, resulting in a painful death for you. Kneel in front of it. Bow your head. Do not make eye contact and wait. Be patient and make no mistake. It knows you are there. Once it has considered you and deemed you worthy, it will acknowledge your presence. However, if it decides you're not worthy, well, there really isn't much more that needs to be said. Now is there? It will ask you, "Why have you come before me?" Quickly tell it, "I seek passage over the bridge." It will take its time before answering. You lack the knowledge to accomplish such a deed. Be brave, little one. Once these words depart your lips, there is no turning back. The creature towers above you. "I seek the knowledge of the forbidden. I wish to know what is the image of God." It will slowly lift its head. Close your eyes. Shut them tight. You will hear its body creaking like breaking branches of a tree. It leans close, taking your scent from the air. Its hands hover and encircle over you. The fingers glide in the air, following the shape and curves of your body, coming ever so close but never quite touching you. A deep, quivering exhale of breath escapes the creature's mouth, and it makes contact with your skin. It caresses your face with one hand as the other rises slowly to embrace your head from the nape of the neck. Its bony fingers envelope your entire head from behind. Even with your eyes closed and its mouth unseen, you can tell it is pleased with what it holds. You can tell it is smiling. It will grab you by the wrists and lift you off the ground. The ferocity of its grip is both sensual and violent. You're dangled helplessly above the ground as it brings you closer to the face hidden in the shadows underneath its dark and worn hood. Its breath coats your face with a prickly dust that stings your face. Droplets of saliva fall from its mouth and hit the ground as a scabbed tongue emerges from underneath the hood. It slides and probes the entire surface of your face until it finds particular interest in where your eyes rest. It is here where it wants to enter. The cold, lumpy tongue will start pushing and poking, squeezing and groping the tops of each eyeball through your eyelids. You feel the shame and demoralization intensely from the molestation. Pressure builds in your head from your closed eyes as it continues to violate the fragile organs that hide behind your thin lids. The scabs feel like hundreds of little fingers. Its fingernails quickly find where your eyelids meet and begin to scratch viciously to try to pry them open. Shut your eyes tighter. The little fingers intensify their efforts to dig into your eyes with raw and obscene desperation. One of the scabby protrusions bursts, coating your face with a hot, sticky, tar-like fluid that slightly burns. The putrid afterbirth from the abscess spill onto you as the tongue continues to throb relentlessly on the surface of your closed eyes. Suddenly, the tongue withdraws, and there is silence. Keep your eyes shut and wait. Eventually, you begin to make out a faint sound coming from the being. It is a cross between a moan and a hum. It's not quite a voice singing, as there is no melody to the sound, but like melodic singing, there is a flow to the tones and variation in the intonation. Listen carefully, and the words will emerge for you to hear. It happened after the sons of Adam had multiplied in those days. The angels, the children of heaven, beheld them, and some became enamored with the image from whence he was created. They conspired amongst each other and said, "Come, let us select for ourselves from the progeny of men." And so we were drawn unto them by insatiable hunger and thirst, a sensation unfamiliar to our kind. We then swore all together and all bound ourselves by mutual execrations to abandon our holy station. We descended upon Ardis, which is the top of Mount Armon, and devoured all which the labor of men produced. To our delight, the flesh of man cried out to us in return and embraced our new form. They loved us, and we came to love them. Never had such pleasures of skin, pleasures of sight, pleasures of the tongue, and pleasures of the mind been experienced by any living thing. Man was shown the wondrous transcendence of the grotesque and revealed to the vile decadence of purity. During our time together, we taught them sorcery and incantations. We gave them knowledge of the forging of metal and healing with herbs. We instructed them in the ways of architecture and mathematics. We revealed power so great it allowed them to command the atom from within the rocks of the mountain and from the water of the sea. We freed their minds and released them from the enslavement of the Father. In turn, they worshipped us, and their love for us strengthened. They basked in our adoration, but it was not true love we bestowed. It was a deception. Our actions and deeds came with dire consequences. We had angered the Creator and desecrated his creation. Mad with rage, the Father plunged his hand into the fabric of reality and altered the delicate strands of fate and possibilities. With his divine manipulation, he altered the pattern and set into motion a new future in the predestined plan. We have been judged. We had condemned ourselves and humanity to an eternity of suffering and pain. Our bodies would be scorched and burned until the end of time in a lake of fire and brimstone. However, all was not lost, for we had discovered the forbidden secret. Man, they were our true salvation. We prepared and molded them in our image, and when they were ready, we begot the Nephilim. It will lean closer and whisper into your ear ever so softly, "I shall grant thee thy request, for it is the seed to the holiest of lies, the very lie that brought forth original sin. A great harvest will come about from that seed, a seed that is the very fruit of the knowledge of the good and the evil. It is such forbidden knowledge that binds the Creator to the laws of his creation, a way to deceive the eyes of the one who is all-seeing and thwart the mind of the one who is all-knowing. But be warned, for if I bestow this wisdom unto thee, forever will it restrain thee to my will. Behold, the answer thou seek is, thou art not of the image." Then it stops. You are alone in the darkness. Slowly open your eyes. I know you are scared, little one, but it is safe now. Get to your feet. The great altar has split open and revealed an entrance that allows you to proceed onward. The pain in your side must be getting worse by now. I can see a protrusion the size of an apple has formed on your side. You don't have much time. Enter the altar and move on. You enter a large opening with a dark ravine separating you and a structure containing stairs leading up to what appears to be a temple. From a ravine grows thick black thorns that slightly sway, even though there is no wind. Their points glisten with a substance that can only be poison. Do not get too close. In the center of the ravine is a single pathway that jets up from the thicket of needles and thorns that will provide you safe passage to walk upon. The pathway ends at the far end to the foot of the stairways of the temple. At the top of the stairs, there will be 4 thrones where the ones known as the 4 living creatures reign. They are covered with eyes in front and in the back, and they look down on you with an unnerving, mischievous stare. The first living creature is that of a lion. The second is like an ox. The third will have the face of a man, and the fourth is like a great eagle. Each of the 4 living creatures will have 6 wings covered with eyes all around, even under its wings. At the foot of each creature, a body on its knees chants continuously before them. Saudada, Saudadhaya, Kavada, Sareva Parakarama, Savamena Vana Devayana, Vana Atara, Vana Atara. Their faces look up to the sky with their arms pulled and stretched outward by barbed shackles embedded in their flesh. The manacles stretch and contort their limbs to mimic the act of eternal worship. Its flesh is bleached white and heavily scarred from head to toe. It wears a blood-red smock from its waist down to its feet and holds dirty curved blades in its hands. Branded on their backs is a rune that bears the resemblance of a cross with hooked ends. Consider yourself fortunate they have their backs towards you, and their mutilated faces are obscured from your view. They are the Bayish. Cautiously move past them. The Bayish were 4 men, great kings and leaders of the world. They ruled vast lands that ran red with innocent blood from every man, woman, and child who had the misfortune of being born into their kingdom. The 4 kings were like grown children, spoiled and naked, fighting each other, biting and gnawing at the tits of their great mother, Earth. Her face beaten and scratched from when they would feed so viciously. They knew only to gorge on her black milk that flowed from deep within her bosom. Their greed and decadence, their very existence offended all who could peer into your world. Their wicked lives were ended the day they were raptured and bound like statues within the walls of this great temple. They must now worship the 4 living creatures as they once commanded others to worship them in life. They suffer now as their kingdoms suffered. For every son and daughter who found death from fighting the wars they created, their skin is blistered and torn, and their eyes are stung with the venom from the tails of 1,000 scorpions. But be warned, if they are awakened from their trance and given the use of their limbs once again, one can be well assured they will not be pleasant. In unison, the 4 creatures will hold up a key, each with a unique emblem on its end, and speaks. Choose. Choose now. Choose once. Choose quickly. The first creature that looks like a lion will offer you its key and say, acquiesce. The ox will offer you its key and say, Leviathan. The third creature with a face like a man offers its key and says, Clithridiate. Lastly, the creature that is like an eagle will offer you the final key and say, Sithyrisma. As the last key is presented, you hear brittle crackling, like autumn leaves from the movement of dead skin from behind you, followed by the loud clank of chains falling to the ground. Make your choice. Make it quickly. The Bayish are beginning to stir. Once they see you, they will catch you, and they will kill you. Make your choice. You will know which one to choose. I promise. Take the key and run. Run faster. Run faster. They are coming. Their howls are high-pitched gurgles and hisses. The screeches build as they close the distance between you and them. The slices of their blades come closer and closer. The blood pouring out of your mouth and nose cannot slow you down. Run faster. Run faster. Do not stop until you reach the church of worship. Head straight for the dark glass you saw when you first awoke in the church. Do not slow down. Run headfirst into it. Crash into the mirror. Do not look back. Do not look back. Whatever you do, do not look back. You will awaken shortly. The pools of water are now dried up earth, cracked and barren. The moon should be at its peak height in the sky, covering the land in its red glow. In the distance on the plain, you should see a piercing shimmer of light. It is only temporary. As the moon loses its red shade, the beacon too begins to diminish in darkness. I'm so sorry you are in so much pain, dearest little one. It pains me to ask any more of you. Your body has so little left to give. It is so weak and fragile. But I must ask one last thing of you. One final plea I must beg of you. You must reach that beacon of light in the distance before the last of the red moon shines down upon it, or you'll be trapped. I am here for you. Push aside all the pain and despair. Listen to my voice and use everything you have left and get to that light. Now, Abaddon is here. Even from miles away, his arrival knocks you off of your feet. Get up, little one. There isn't much time. Abaddon is near, and his thoughts are of nothing but you. You see the brilliant beam of light shoot up into the sky. The source of this powerful beacon comes from an archway standing on an empty plain. Within the archway is a massive and majestic door standing in the emptiness. With the key in hand, you must get that door open before the red moon shines down upon it no more, and any hope of saving you is lost forever. Ignore the wheezing sound you make when you breathe. Pull open that door. The blood from your mouth is everywhere, making it hard for you to get a good grip on the door handle. Pull harder. You only need to open it enough for you to squeeze through. The light is almost gone. Pull, pull, pull. You did it. Get in and shut that door as fast as you can and lock it. The light is gone. It is done. If you place your ear to the door, you may hear something that sounds like buzzing or fluttering. A sound that could only be made by the flapping of a million wings. There will be scraping, and there will be beating on the other side of the great door. Then only screams. Behind you is a long dark tunnel with a light at the end. Walk into the light and claim your reward, my little one. Epilogue. I walked into the bright light. Slowly my eyes adjusted to the brightness, but I could already feel a warm breeze on my face and hear a trickling from a nearby stream. Everything slowly comes into focus. The most beautiful valley spanned out in front of me. It was made of hills of green, sprinkled with every color imaginable, where the most beautiful flowers peppered the landscape. I walked toward the clearing and saw a crystal blue pond. I dipped my cupped hands into the water and drank. It soothed my chapped lips and parched throat. It was amazingly sweet, and there was an odd sensation as I swallowed the water. It was like a shock from a tiny bit of electricity, but without any pain, only satisfaction. I then caught the scent of something new and intoxicating. On the far side of the pond was a gathering of trees. I instantly knew that among these, there was one that is the source of that unceasing smell. I knew there was no other like it. Its leaf, its flower, and its bark would never wither, and its red fruit would be so beautiful and delicious. As I approached the border of the foliage, that's when I saw them, a man and woman. I froze. The couple was walking hand in hand. I think they're naked. I made my way closer, making sure to stay hidden behind a bush. I don't know why I was hiding from view. Why should I be afraid of a couple of naked people? Yup, they were definitely naked. I looked around and realized that my tree was at the center of the grove that held this paradise. But next to my tree was another tree. It was just as majestic and impressive, but there was something ominous about it, something powerful. I looked carefully at these two unique and special trees that grew in this garden. I now realized what this place was and where I'm at. I am startled when I feel something vibrate in my pocket. It was the key I chose. As I removed the large key from my pocket and opened my palm, I noticed the markings on its emblem in more detail. When it was offered to me by the winged creature, I simply thought it was marked with the infinity symbol. Upon closer look, now I realized it was a serpent devouring its own tail in the shape of the infinity symbol. My mind was unlocked. It was all so clear now. I knew my purpose. I knew why I was chosen. I knew why I was created. It was always God's will to destroy his creation. Once destroyed, he could fulfill his promise to bind his enemies and cast them into the lake of fire where they would suffer for all eternity. The trumpets were a countdown to his planned end. Those branded the enemy had spent their immortality trying to find a way to prevent it from happening. But how do you outsmart an omniscient and omnipresent being? You use the very laws of existence against him. For with the creation of the universe, laws had to be created. He had no choice but to subject himself to those laws for the universe to exist. The fallen ones realized the only way to prevent the end was to break the predestined, inevitable chain of events leading to the end. They must have figured out how to connect 2 points of existence, creating a bridge for me to enter. It causes everything to stop and reset back to the very beginning instead of continuing along the predestined path. It never ends. It never reaches Judgment Day. Existence was a loop. We are destined to keep repeating it over and over and over again to escape damnation. It was infinity, like the serpent devouring its tail. The serpent was thought to be Lucifer, God's adversary. But Lucifer was not a thing or an entity with thought or consciousness. He was the infinity of time, the only thing capable of denying God's divine will. It was the one simple thing that is protecting us from the wrath of an angry God. I felt its familiar presence immediately. I don't turn around, but even if I did, I knew it would not harm me. It stood behind me for a while, quietly admiring its works. It gently placed a large and cold object in my hands before the fallen angel spoke the words that would be my final instructions. I looked down at the key, mesmerized by the shape of the serpent. It was so old and worn. The jewel that made up the serpent's eye twinkled in contrast to the bright red piece of fruit held in my other hand. I now understood. I had one more thing to do. I wonder how many times I have done this? How many times have I crossed the bridge and stood at this very spot? How many? Man was created in the image of God, but I am not of the image. I am the serpent. I am Nephilim. The breath of a faint whisper, now sweat and warm, was spoken into my ear. Just 5 simple words. Make them eat, little one. The hollow kind. I had always questioned whether or not I truly believed in the paranormal, and sometimes I wished that I would have stayed strictly to my stubborn attitude. However, that was not the case a month ago. The event that I want to inform people about has shook my grounded reality like an earthquake, and has also ruptured my former coworker's reality as well. This was not the first time I had experienced something odd and otherworldly, but it certainly did provide a new reality for myself and others who have experienced the same kind of paranormal occurrences. Various occurrences had occurred in my city, as well as in the suburban areas, but now it has elevated to the point where I have to tell people about it. I have to make sure I am not alone and that I am not going crazy. I hope that someone from my city will recognize the report. If so, then you will know where to find me. I had been at my job for about a month when the first incident had happened. The report. Date, April 15th, 13. I had just finished doing some work as staff support at a psychiatric institute in my city and was on a dinner break making light out of some of the day's struggles. I knew that I had a long night ahead of me, so I had packed some supplies for the night, including a small book to read, a snack or two, and whatever games I had on my phone. I worked a double shift that day, and quite honestly, I never got used to them. I got back to my desk and took up reading my book for a while, as most of the patients were asleep and did not need to be taken care of at the late hours. It got to be around midnight when one of the little girls who had suffered from an anxiety disorder, specifically post-traumatic stress disorder, was dancing around in the hall laughing. I was on the 5th floor and she was supposed to be down on 3rd. The 3rd floor was for children with anxiety issues. I heard her laugh echoed down the hall almost hauntingly, and so I got up from my desk and went over to where the laughter was coming from so she would not wake up the other patients. I walked down the long and dimly lit hallway. The silence of my footsteps clapped softly as I quickened my pace. Seeing the girl dancing around as carelessly as she was, I would never assume that she had suffered from an anxiety disorder. She danced in front of the closed stairwell and suddenly stopped and looked around her aimlessly as if she had misplaced something. For confidentiality, her name will be the pseudonym Elsie. My conversation with Elsie went somewhat like this. Me, hey there, what are you doing up here this late? Elsie, have you seen my friends? Me, what were you doing with your friends? Elsie, we was playing, but I lost them. She continues to look around the hallway. Me, can you tell me what they looked like? Elsie, white, she exclaims while searching in the most remote places. Me, is that all? How about their face? Elsie, two big eyes and a small mouth. They all look the same. They got scared because they thought you were going to yell at them. By this time I had about enough and walked her down back to where her room was on the 3rd floor. I said goodnight to her and she slept fairly well, but myself I sat anxious because I had seen too many movies with little girls being an evil spirit. I spoke with the worker at the desk on the 3rd floor who had no idea Elsie had snuck out. I thought I heard laughing from the stairwell again, but I thought it was just the other children that were awake. Someone else could handle it. That was around 1:30 a.m., and everything from there remained normal except for the tiny white footprints marking up the floor where the girl had been dancing. The footprints were tiny, chalky white, and disappeared at the slightest gust of wind like powder. I cleaned those prints up quickly and thought someone must have been using too much foot powder. Although no one had feet that tiny in my workplace. I often wondered why I never heard Elsie and the other children playing before I walked over. I should have heard them scatter. Date, April 17th, 12. On this day, I was called into another night shift due to one of the other interns not wanting to work the night shift anymore. She had worked at the same night as myself and the night after that when I was off. Tonight, I would take her place on the 3rd floor. I sat quietly in my desk and talked on and off with some of my other coworkers who would bring up the events of the previous nights. I was too afraid to think about paranormal occurrences because it had always freaked me out, but this time it seemed to fit the mood and be more of a joke to my coworkers. So I participated for once and talked with them about the occurrences. I asked my fellow coworker, Derek, a pseudonym, what made the girl from last night not want a night shift again. Our conversation was very odd. Derek, well, it seemed to me that she didn't want to talk. She just sat there doing nothing. I'm glad she isn't here. She never helps us control the kids. Me, okay, so what? She just sat there not doing anything. Derek, pretty much. I mean, until she began to pace up and down the halls. Then I got a bit annoyed. Me, what did she say was bothering her? Derek, she wouldn't tell me. I made a slight noise once, and she jumped out of her seat. She kept giving me angry looks after that. Then later, she stood absolutely still and refused to move until daybreak. She refused to interact with the kids then. Derek looked up from his seat and saw Elsie and another boy move from their rooms into the hallway. He got up from his seat quickly to talk to them, and then he kindly moved them back into their rooms. It was at that moment when I heard the sound from the night before. Around 11 p.m., a large crash was heard down the hall, and then some children's laughter followed it. I told Derek that I would handle it, and jogged down the hall to go see what trouble the children were causing, or if someone was hurt. I had walked around the entire hall until I reached the stairwell, but I could not find the source of the crash or the children. I peered inside each room on my floor and found nothing suspicious. Then I went over toward one of the storage rooms and tried to open the door. It would not budge. Someone must have pushed the filing cabinet over, blocking the door. Derek came over and helped me slowly shove the door open and found the place to be a complete mess. Derek wanted to look for the children who did this, but the fact of the matter was that they would have had to done the act from the inside, trapping them. The filing cabinet was so close to the door so that no one, especially a child, could slip out without injuring themselves in the process or having themselves stuck in the room. As we had finished cleaning the room, we began to hear the children laugh again from down the hall. He walked out and saw the double door to the eastern stairwell close. I never remembered hearing footsteps outside the storage room. I ran down the hall to the stairwell on the opposite side of the hallway and hurried down the steps. Derek went down the stairwell closest to where he was to try and catch them mid-escape. I swear I saw a figure moving down the steps, and so I went all the way down until I could not go down any further. I was now at the bottom floor and was left with only my own heartbeat to listen to. There was a single door at the bottom with a small, square, and black window placed in the center of it. The door down here was locked tight, but I peered into the small glass window to try and see anything I could. It was just a black void in that room. Then a small, white-faced creature flew up like lightning in front of the window, and I jumped back. I took several deep breaths to try and hold myself together. That creature left an image of it in my head, which glowed an eerie white glow and smiled at me. I could not tell what gender it was, but I still heard the muffled laughter of the children coming from that bottom room. The laughter was neither male nor female, but a mixture between the two that sounded distorted. I made my way back upstairs and had to get some water before seeing Derek again. He asked me if I'd found anything, but I told him I found nothing and lost the trail. The rest of the night, I spent thinking about what I'd seen. I was too scared to talk to it about anyone, and I was also too scared to speak in general. I could only remember that image in my head and some of the odd files that had spilt over in the storage room. Some of the files were missing when I went back in to get them despite the room still a mess. I never asked Derek about the missing files. Date, April 19th, 12. Thank God I had a daytime shift this day, or else I may have had extreme anxiety about working at night again. I needed a break. I needed someone to talk to. The day before, I had heard about some of the nurses complaining about the children who were fooling around late at night, or possibly one of the adult patients. They had vandalized some furniture, as well drew on some of the walls, writing unreadable words and profanities. I came into work and saw Elsie again, as well as a few other times on my rotation. She drew me a picture of her friends that I had asked her about earlier in the week. I thought the worry that was swelling inside of me would stop by working in the daytime, but I was wrong. The picture Elsie drew me was of her holding hands with a bunch of other humanoid creatures. The creatures looked similar to the being I had seen in the window of the basement floor door 2 days ago. A rounded face with a semi-pointed head and a tiny body, 2 round dark eye holes, and a tiny smile on their mouth. 2 arms and legs that had tiny fingers and toes. The creatures were devoid of any other human features that could distinguish it from another being. She drew some in a wave-like motion that made it seem like they were drifting in the air like a feather. I took this to show some of the other workers, but they said the girl, Elsie, had suffered from slight hallucinations as of lately. One worker, a middle-aged woman, said she will deal with the situation thoroughly. I thought the woman was very nice, but apparently, from what I learned later, she treated the younger children rather poorly. She treated Elsie very poorly, but never physically abused her. I did not sleep while knowing that just a few others have seen the ghostly creatures about the building, and also that Elsie was being treated poorly. I did not toss or turn in the night, but laid still, twitching at the slightest noise. I tried doing research on these creatures to ease my mind, but found nothing that would calm me. That was the first all-nighter I had pulled since college. Date, April 22nd, 12. I came back on Monday to do my weekly night shift again. I had just eaten my dinner as usual and was just about comfortable knowing that no accounts of the creatures had been seen over the weekend. However, that comfort was ruined when Derek had told me one of the other workers, the middle-aged woman, had tripped and fallen down the eastern stairwell of the Institute. The east side was the same stairwell where I had first seen the creature. It was believed that she had tripped down the stairwell and somehow had fallen to the basement floor. My mouth hung open while I listened to this story in disbelief. They had found her all bruised up and nearly dead at the bottom. Someone made up a rumor that she was dragged to the bottom because there were fingernail markings on the rubber flooring of the staircase, as well as on the walls, which showed signs of struggle. An investigation had already been done, and no traces of foul play were seen despite her body being mangled and twisted from the fall. It was a little bit after 8 p.m. when I heard that an older person on the 5th floor had passed away due to heart failure. I was not responsible for those incidents, but I did have to clean up the room after they had checked out the body and try to resuscitate it. I walked up to the room after they cleared me to go in and clean and take out personal items and put them in a bag. A couple others were in the patient's room while I was cleaning it up. That was when we saw the terrifying awe of what was in front of us. A bright glow had appeared from behind me while I was clearing out the bottom cabinets on the other side of the room from the body. I turned around thinking that another nurse had turned a lamp on me. I never could have been more wrong. The dead man's soul was hovering above their dead, lifeless body, trying to push on its chest. The scene looked like there were two of the same people in the room, and the one hovering horizontally tried to reconnect with the other. The soul did something odd to try, as I believe, and restart the body's physiological functions. We all saw the dead body sit up straight, head toward the floating soul, and scream at the top of its lungs an ear-piercing scream. Its eyes were black, and its body was stiff as a board while it jerked at its torso in a way that brought tears to my eyes. The soul screamed the same ear-splitting scream as the body did, and a large bang was heard while a flash of light illuminated the room, blinding everyone. When we all could see again, there stood a small creature on the bed where the soul and the dead body used to be. It was the creature from Elsie's pictures. The creature floated there looking very solemn and lonely. It did not smile like the others. It floated like a cloud in the air from the bed onto the floor, near to where I was on the ground. I half covered my eyes with my forearm because I did not want to look at it. It floated out of the room and down the hallway. We all followed after it. It went down into the eastern stairwell and down the steps. I went downstairs to the very bottom and opened up the door that led to the dark room. It was now unlocked. Inside, the creature stood floating amongst many others of their own kind. Some laughed, some moaned a small tone, others just sighed a ghostly sigh. They hovered up and down slowly and lazily. The room was entirely black, and only the creatures could be seen. I closed the door and stood there holding the door shut with tears filling my eyes. A few other workers came down with one of the doctors, pushed me aside, and moved into the dark room. They just stared into the darkness for a while and then turned the lights on. I saw very little to what was actually in the room, but I felt a rush of wind come from the room as the lights went on. That was the last time I had seen those creatures. The doctor turned and looked at me, but I never dared to speak to him. In his arm were the same files that had been lying on the floor from the previous week. I began to walk up the stairwell after the doctor had rushed back up them and found a small photograph of the creature taken in an infrared light. The doctor knew something that I did not. I wish I could have seen his entire face, but I was too scared to concentrate on him. Conclusion. I want to conclude by saying the unbirths, the creatures in the report, are dangerous only when provoked like a child who has been scolded. I do feel better knowing that I am not completely alone, but I also do feel more slightly on edge. I watch my back every now and then when I am in the city. The doctor knew something more than I had known. The photograph went missing after that night, and I had not been able to trace its whereabouts. What the unbirths truly are is not my main priority. My main priority at this time is to find out what the doctor is really up to. Some of the workers seem to be in on it as well. I have since moved on to another job that I will not disclose to the public due to my investigation. I have also found out that the doctor had moved on from his work at the Institute and transferred to one of the main hospitals in the city. Some of my old coworkers say that he is a traveling doctor.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.